Hey, pop culture magicians, Taylor Elwood here, and it's a wonderful evening in Portland, Oregon right now, but I want to talk about pop culture metasystems. Earlier today, we did in the pop culture magic group, we did our meme about, what are you doing for fun for pop culture magic Sunday, or pop culture fun Sunday, and I talked about how I'd finished watching Westworld, which, if you haven't seen that series, I highly recommend. But as I was watching the series, it got me to thinking that really that Westworld is kind of a meta-system of pop culture. And what does that really mean? Well, you have the sci-fi elements, but you also have the Western elements. And you smash those two together, and what you come up with is this meta-system of pop culture where the sci-fi is commenting on the Western, but the Western is also commenting on the sci-fi, and then of course you just have the behavioral aspects involved as well, which is all commenting on itself. And so I think of a pop culture metasystem really as a system where you have multiple genres of pop culture coming together, and those genres are coming together to create something new. And at the same time, that something new is commenting on the original systems or the original genres that are being brought together. In the case of Westworld, you see this commentary on Westerns, but you also see this commentary on human behavior and on science fiction. And so it all comes together to create this very intricate, crafted, nuanced story where you really explore different levels and layers of people. I mean, it was just utterly amazing to watch that show. And I want to note that I'm not talking about a pop culture meta-system of magic. Although we could technically go into a meta system of magic, where again we're combining genres in order or different pop culture systems of magic in order to create something new. Certainly could try and do that. But what I'm really talking about here is just this recognition that of how pop culture comments on itself. And what's interesting is that sometimes what makes pop culture go meta isn't even the introduction of new genres. Sometimes it's just changes to that pop culture. For example, right now there's this huge kerfluffle in the Doctor Who fandom because I guess there's this new female Doctor that's going to be showing up in the Christmas special. And I think it's kind of fascinating to observe this and watch how people are responding and reacting to it, because again, it's kind of like the show is actually in some ways commenting on the very pop culture fandom, even as the pop culture fandom is commenting on the show. And so that's another example of a meta system at work. And we see that a lot. I mean, you see that where people will come up with their own fan fiction, for example, and so what's really happening is there's this commentary that's happening across where the fan fiction is commenting on the fiction, but then the fiction ends up commenting on the fan fiction, and so on and so forth. And what that really shows is that pop culture breaks out of the boundaries, right? It breaks out of the world that we know. And it introduces us to something different. I personally think that pop culture metasystems are absolutely an integral part of something that we'll continue to explore in pop culture magic, which is just really how does pop culture comment on us, and how do we comment on it? How do we and how does it as a whole comment on society and all these other things? I mean, that's part of what makes pop culture relevant. It's not just that we enjoy pop culture. It's how pop culture shapes our lives. It's how pop culture speaks to who we are and what we do as people. And I think that can't be emphasized enough, really, because a lot of times people will ignore or focus only on one aspect of pop culture. They'll ignore the other aspects. Was Westworld, for example, fun to watch? You better believe it. I absolutely freaking loved it. But part of what made me love it was how much it made me think about my own human condition and how it made me think about the Western genre and the science fiction genre, and how those were paired up. So I think that, it's one of those things where sometimes our appreciation of pop culture necessarily needs to take a step back from the actual pop culture itself and look at what the pop culture is doing, and how it comments on us, and how it comments on itself, and all those other things. That's what makes pop culture into a metasystem. And that's worth exploring in our pop culture magic. Um, so, you'll be hearing more about how I think that could be explored soon. But I just thought I would just create this little impromptu video because I was really just inspired by Westworld. And actually, if you're watching the video on my blog, then you're probably seeing it in relationship to the rest of what I'm going to write, because I'm going to make it into part of a blog entry. All right. Anyway, take care, and I hope you enjoy the evening, and talk later.